For years, the Princess Royal stayed quiet while debates around the royal family grew louder and more complicated. Many people saw her as the steady figure who never chased attention. She worked quietly. She carried out her duties. She protected the institution without demanding recognition for doing so. But now, a surprising discovery inside palace records has sparked a new conversation. Reports about a forgotten clause have led royal watchers to look back at old decisions in a very different way. Suddenly, many are asking the same question. Was Princess Anne right all along? And if so, what exactly did palace archivists uncover that has everyone talking? This is the story of a document that may have changed how the entire royal family should have been operating. A clause that was forgotten, a principle that was buried, and a princess whose decades of quiet service may finally be receiving the recognition it always deserved. Keep watching, because what was hidden in those archives is forcing people to reconsider everything they thought they understood about royal tradition and royal duty. The story began with reports that palace archivists, reviewing historical documents deep inside the monarchy's official records, came across a little-known clause. This clause was linked to royal titles and family connections. According to several observers who have discussed the finding, it raised fresh questions about how certain family relationships were meant to be recognized within the institution. The exact wording of the clause has not been officially released. The palace has not confirmed what the documents specifically contain, but the speculation alone has been enough to capture worldwide attention. When information remains limited, curiosity grows stronger. People began asking whether earlier assumptions about royal arrangements were completely accurate. Almost immediately, attention turned toward Princess Anne. For decades, she has built a reputation unlike any other senior member of the royal family. She rarely spoke about family disputes. She avoided public drama. Instead, she focused entirely on duty and continued carrying out hundreds of engagements each year without complaint or demand for special recognition. Many people admired her for staying committed while remaining largely outside the spotlight. Because of that reputation, royal watchers have often viewed her opinions as thoughtful and grounded. Some reports suggest that Princess Anne preferred preserving long-standing traditions rather than making major changes too quickly. Observers noticed that she often represented stability during periods when the monarchy faced pressure from both inside and outside the institution. Now, with this newly discussed clause making headlines, many have started revisiting past events. Some believe Princess Anne may have privately held concerns about how royal titles and family roles should be managed. However, no official statements have confirmed such views. Much of the current discussion comes from royal commentators and longtime followers of the monarchy who are comparing today's reports with previous royal decisions. But that is not all. Because the real question people are now asking is far more important than any single document. What did Anne understand about royal duty that others were slow to recognize? For decades, Princess Anne represented something increasingly rare inside the modern royal family. She embodied discipline over celebrity, service over attention-seeking, duty over personal comfort. While other members of the family made headlines or gave interviews or struggled with their place in the institution, Anne simply worked. The numbers tell part of the story. She completed thousands of official engagements. She supported countless charities. She traveled constantly on behalf of the crown. She raised her children. She maintained her marriage. She never once used her position to complain publicly or demand sympathy for her circumstances. In a family that had become accustomed to emotional openness and public vulnerability, Anne's quiet approach stood out. Some people criticized her for being too formal, too distant, too traditional. But others recognized something different. They saw someone who understood that the monarchy's survival depended on something more important than individual happiness or personal fulfillment. They saw someone who understood duty itself. The reported discovery inside the archives has done more than simply validate Anne's approach. It has forced an entire generation to ask whether they had been wrong about what mattered most inside the institution. It has prompted people to reconsider whether tradition and discipline might be more important than they had previously believed. What makes this story especially fascinating is the timing. The royal family has spent recent years adapting to changing expectations. Questions about tradition, modernization, and public image have become increasingly important. Every new detail from the past seems to attract enormous attention because people want to understand how earlier decisions continue to affect the monarchy today. Princess Anne has spent her entire life navigating these exact questions. While others argued about how the family should change, she simply demonstrated through her actions what timeless duty actually looked like. Now those actions are being viewed through a completely different lens. Keep watching, because as discussion around these archive documents grows, the story is revealing something far more significant than any single clause could ever convey. The biggest mystery surrounding this discovery is not the clause itself. It is why it remained hidden for so long. It is why people did not recognize earlier what Princess Anne seemed to understand instinctively. It is why a princess who gave everything to her duty was never fully celebrated for that sacrifice. Royal institutions operate through a combination of tradition, law, and established practice. Over hundreds of years, these rules have evolved. Certain titles have changed. Roles have shifted. Public expectations have transformed dramatically. Even a single overlooked detail buried in historical documents can become the center of enormous debate. Some reports suggest the clause in question may have been intended to clarify boundaries regarding family recognition. Others believe its importance could be far more symbolic than practical. Without official confirmation, experts and commentators can only examine the available historical context and try to understand what it all means. But here is what seems clear to anyone who has watched Princess Anne's life unfold. She knew something about the monarchy that the rest of the family was slow to learn. She understood that institutions survive not through adaptation for its own sake, but through honoring the principles that made them strong in the first place. Symbolism matters enormously inside the monarchy. Royal titles are not just names. They represent status, history, and identity. For many supporters of the institution, these traditions help preserve continuity between generations. That is why any discussion involving titles immediately attracts worldwide interest. What the palace archivists reportedly discovered is still being debated among royal commentators and historians. But one thing has become clear to observers. The conversation has shifted from asking what the clause says to asking what it reveals about how Anne understood the monarchy's future. According to several accounts, Anne had expressed concern about rapid changes happening inside the institution without proper consultation. She worried that modernization pursued too quickly could damage the very traditions that made the monarchy worth preserving. She believed that loyalty and continuity mattered. She believed that duty came before personal preference. And now, whether because of this newly discovered clause or simply because of hindsight, people are beginning to recognize that she may have been right. But that is not all. Because the full significance of this discovery only becomes clear when you understand what else was happening at the same time and was quietly maintaining her position. Over the past decade, the royal family has faced enormous pressure to change. Supporters of modernization argued that traditions needed to evolve. They said the monarchy needed to be more relatable, more flexible, more willing to adapt to contemporary values. These voices grew louder. They became more persuasive. They seemed to be winning the argument about what the future should look like. Meanwhile, supporters of Queen Camilla argued that modern realities should be the primary consideration. They pointed out that the monarchy has adapted many times before. Throughout history, royal families across Europe have adjusted customs to fit changing times. Why should this moment be different? Why should the institution resist the inevitable march of progress? These arguments had force. They had logic. They seemed to represent the future. But Anne remained steady in her position. She did not argue loudly. She did not make speeches about what needed to be preserved. Instead, she simply continued demonstrating through her life and her work what true service actually meant. She showed up. She fulfilled her duties. She honored the traditions that held the institution together. She did this not because she was rigid or old-fashioned, but because she understood something fundamental about institutions that others were forgetting. Institutions survive through continuity. They endure through people who remember what matters. They remain strong through discipline and commitment to principles that transcend any single generation's preferences. Princess Anne embodied all of that. And for years, while others debated the future, she simply lived it through her actions. Now, as people revisit the history and examine what the archive documents may reveal, they are beginning to understand something they should have recognized all along, and was not stuck in the past. She was protecting something essential that the future would need. Keep watching, because what happens next reveals why this discovery has become so much bigger than any single person or any single document. As discussion around the archive documents grew, many people began asking another question. Why has Princess Anne often been seen as one of the strongest defenders of royal tradition? Unlike many public figures, Anne has never built her image around controversy. Throughout her life, she earned respect through consistency. She carried out royal duties year after year without seeking headlines. That approach helped create an image of reliability that many supporters deeply admire. Over time, royal commentators noticed that Anne appeared to value structure and history. Some reports suggest she believed that changes inside the monarchy should happen carefully and with respect for long-established customs. While these claims remain based largely on observations rather than official confirmation, they have shaped how many people view her role within the family. Because of that reputation, the latest reports have caused renewed interest in Anne's past positions. Observers have started revisiting moments when she appeared cautious about changes taking place within the institution. Many believe her focus was never about personalities. Instead, they argue that she cared about preserving the identity of the monarchy itself. That distinction matters profoundly for someone like Anne. Duty has always appeared to come first. She rarely comments publicly on family matters. She avoids interviews that could create tension. Even during difficult periods, she has maintained a calm and disciplined image. As a result, some royal watchers now believe the current discussion surrounding historical title arrangements makes her previous approach look more understandable. They see her resistance to rapid change not as stubborn conservatism but as protective wisdom. The palace has not officially confirmed what the clause contains or what it means. No statements have been released describing how the document affects current arrangements. But the speculation itself has already changed how people think about Anne's role in royal history. Meanwhile, public fascination continues to grow. People are naturally drawn to stories involving hidden records and forgotten details. When those stories involve the royal family, interest becomes even stronger. The idea that an overlooked clause could suddenly change how history is interpreted has captured the attention of audiences around the world. Yet important questions remain unanswered. No official announcement has suggested that any current titles are being changed. The palace has not publicly confirmed many of the claims circulating among commentators. Because of that, much of the conversation remains speculative. But speculation alone has not stopped the debate. Many believe the true significance of the discovery goes beyond any single title. Instead, they see it as part of a larger conversation about history, tradition, and the delicate balance the monarchy must maintain in modern times. And according to some observers, the most surprising details may still be hidden within the documents that sparked this entire discussion. What those records reportedly contain could explain why this story has become far bigger than anyone expected. The conversation has evolved. What started as curiosity about an archived clause has become something much larger. It has become a national reckoning with questions the monarchy has been avoiding for years. Should tradition matter more than modernization? Should continuity be valued above innovation? Should a princess who simply did her duty be recognized as wiser than those who pushed for change? These are the questions people are now asking. And the answers, it seems, may require looking backward at someone who was looking backward all along. As the debate continued, many royal watchers found themselves asking a question that few expected to hear. Has Princess Anne's approach to royal life been quietly validated by recent events? For decades, Anne followed a path that looked very different from many other members of the family. She rarely sought publicity. She avoided public disagreements. While headlines often focused on major controversies and personal struggles within the institution, Anne remained in the background, working. That choice had consequences. She did not build the kind of public following that comes from emotional openness. She did not generate the sympathy that comes from public vulnerability. She did not become famous for her personal story or her private battles. Instead, she became known simply for her work. In another era, that might have been enough. But in recent decades, as the royal family increasingly competed for public attention through personal revelation and emotional honesty, Anne's quietness began to look like a liability. Some people saw her as cold. Others viewed her approach as outdated. In a world where vulnerability was rewarded and emotional authenticity was celebrated, Anne's discipline seemed to mark her as someone who did not fit the modern monarchy. But now, as people reconsider what the royal family actually needs to survive, Anne's approach is being viewed differently. Her consistency is being reframed as strength. Her discipline is being understood as wisdom. Her refusal to seek attention is being recognized as a form of integrity that the institution desperately needed. Whether because of the archive clause or simply because of hindsight, people are beginning to see Anne not as a relic of an outdated tradition but as someone who understood something essential about how institutions actually survive. She knew that the monarchy's future depended less on being liked than on being trusted, less on being relatable than on being steady, less on adapting to every cultural shift than on maintaining principles that would still matter when the culture shifted again. But that is not all. Because as attention turns toward validating Anne's approach, another question has emerged that could reshape how people view the entire royal family moving forward. Could this revelation affect how people understand Queen Camilla and her family's place inside the institution? That possibility has opened an entirely new chapter in the debate. As news of the reported clause continued to circulate, attention slowly shifted toward Queen Camilla and the wider public image surrounding her position within the monarchy. For many years, Camilla's journey inside the royal family has been one of the most discussed stories in modern royal history. Public attitudes changed gradually over time. What was once a deeply divisive subject eventually became a story of acceptance and stability for many supporters of the monarchy. That transformation did not happen overnight. Through years of public service and royal duties, Queen Camilla steadily built her own place within the institution. Many observers noticed that she focused on supporting King Charles while avoiding unnecessary controversy. As a result, public opinion toward her softened considerably compared to earlier decades. Because of that progress, the latest reports about traditional titles and historical arrangements have created renewed interest in Camilla's role. Some commentators believe that any discussion involving titles naturally draws attention to family relationships and public perceptions. Others argue that the reported discovery may have little practical effect at all. At this stage, no official changes have been announced. That fact remains extremely important. Despite widespread speculation, there is currently no confirmation that existing arrangements are under review. Palace officials have not publicly indicated that any new action is being considered. Much of the conversation has developed through media analysis and reactions from royal followers. Still, perception often matters almost as much as reality. Many people form opinions based not only on official decisions but also on the stories surrounding those decisions. In the age of social media, public debates can spread rapidly and influence how events are remembered and understood. Some royal supporters have defended Queen Camilla's position, arguing that her years of dedication should remain the focus. Others believe historical documents deserve careful examination regardless of where the findings may lead. This difference of opinion has created an emotional divide among royal watchers. Yet one thing seems clear: the discussion has become larger than any single person. It now touches on questions about tradition, modernization, and the continuing challenge of balancing history with present-day expectations. These are issues that every generation of the monarchy eventually faces. And once again, many observers have found themselves looking back toward Princess Anne, not because she has entered the debate publicly, but because her lifelong image of discipline, duty, and respect for tradition suddenly appears more relevant than ever. As more people revisit her record, some believe Anne's role inside the royal family may deserve a new level of appreciation. And that growing shift in public opinion could become one of the most unexpected outcomes of this entire story. Keep watching, because what happens next will determine whether this discovery simply becomes another royal controversy or whether it genuinely changes how the institution operates moving forward. The story of the Forgotten Clause remains incomplete. The palace has not released official statements clarifying what the document contains. No comprehensive explanation has been provided about how it should affect current arrangements or future decisions. The uncertainty itself has become part of the narrative. But what seems undeniable is that Princess and steady, traditional approach to royal duty is being viewed with new respect. Her refusal to chase modernization for its own sake is being understood as foresight. Her commitment to service over attention is being recognized as wisdom. Whether this validation will lead to concrete changes remains unknown. Whether the monarchy will actually shift direction based on these historical documents remains to be seen. Whether Anne's approach will become a model for future generations or remain simply a respected example from the past are all questions without clear answers. But something has shifted in how people think about what the royal family needs. And that shift itself may be the most important discovery of all. Do you believe Princess Anne was right about protecting royal tradition? Or do you think the monarchy needed to modernize more than it did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If this story moved you, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. The royals are facing more challenges than ever before, and the decisions they make now will determine the monarchy's future. Click the video on your screen right now to watch the story that reveals what's really happening inside the palace walls.